Washington, D.C. was supposed to be the seat of justice until a judge tried to silence a woman for wearing a cross. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stood her ground in a federal courtroom, only to be fined and humiliated for displaying her faith. The judge called her a fanatic. The courtroom gasped, and across the nation, millions of Americans watched, stunned, outraged, and ready to take sides. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She sued him for $800 million, and what she uncovered shook the entire system to its core. Hidden files, silenced victims, a judge who thought no one would ever challenge him. Until now. This isn't just a courtroom drama. It's a story about what happens when truth refuses to bow. If you believe in standing up for faith and freedom, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and comment where you're watching from, because what happens next will leave you speechless. The cross may be small, but in this fight, it became the loudest voice in the room. It started with a question, the kind too many Americans are afraid to ask out loud. Can a judge punish you for believing in God? For Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, that question turned from theory to reality in less than 7 minutes. The hearing room was packed, not with cameras or screaming partisans, but with quiet resolve, aging veterans in navy blazers, church-going grandmothers with scarves wrapped tight, teachers, nurses, farmers, all waiting for Jasmine's testimony in a federal oversight case tied to civil liberties. She stepped into the room with calm, sure steps, a silver cross glinting at her neck. Most people didn't even notice it at first, not the way they noticed her voice, strong but steady, like a woman who'd faced down more than just political opponents. She'd fought poverty. She'd buried family. She'd carried grief, truth, and faith on her back since she was 13. But one man noticed the cross immediately. Federal Judge Nathan Harwell. He wasn't supposed to be there that day, but he made a sudden appearance, requesting to observe the hearing due to legal procedural concern. Some thought it was odd, others knew better. Harwell had a reputation in hushed circles, harsh on religious expression, dismissive of spiritual language, and merciless toward witnesses who carried both facts and faith into his courtroom. Jasmine took her seat anyway. She opened her file, cleared her throat, and began. My name is Jasmine Crockett. I come not just as a member of Congress, but as a daughter of the South, as a woman of faith, and as someone who knows that justice without moral courage isn't justice at all. The room stayed silent until Judge Harwell shifted forward. Objection, he said. The room blinked. The moderator, a junior Senate staffer overseeing the panel, looked confused. Your Honor, this is a testimony hearing, not a trial. Harwell raised a hand. This witness is displaying religious paraphernalia and invoking faith in a federal proceeding. That is inappropriate. Murmurs. Jasmine looked up slowly. This is my necklace, she said. It's not testimony, it's me. Harwell stood. Then I'm ordering that you be fined under Procedural Code 72B, inappropriate conduct within a legal setting. $500, effective immediately. Gasps. Jasmine didn't flinch. Not then, not when he added, and let the record reflect. The witness entered this chamber with intent to agitate through personal ideology. The record. He wanted to stain the record. A young court aide in the back dropped her pen. A veteran in the front row shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and a dozen phones silently recorded the moment as Jasmine stood. She didn't raise her voice. Your Honor, if wearing a cross in America is now considered ideological aggression, then I fear for every grandmother who ever walked into a courtroom after Sunday church. Harwell didn't respond. He didn't have to. The damage had been done. By the time Jasmine left the building, the video had gone viral. 6 million views by dinner time, 14 million by sunrise, and somewhere between the first post and the 50th headline, the internet had given it a name. Shoshkirny Crossfire Trial. The backlash came fast. Cable news anchors debated it like blood sport. Some praised Harwell for neutralizing bias. Others called it judicial overreach. But none of the noise changed the quiet pain Jasmine felt in her chest. Because it wasn't just about her. It was about the girl in Alabama who emailed her that night, the one who said her teacher made her tuck her cross under her collar during a civics exam. It was about the elderly Vietnam veteran in Ohio who'd been removed from a courtroom once for reciting a prayer before his grandson's sentencing. It was about her mother, who wore a cross during chemo treatments and whispered scripture between doses. And it was about what kind of country America was becoming if one judge could decide faith had no place near facts. So Jasmine called a meeting. 1 week later, she stood in a quiet conference room with 3 people. Linda Graves, a retired FBI investigator turned private consultant. Elena Park, a South Korean-born data analyst who once exposed corruption in the Pentagon's tech procurement wing. Maya Chen, a Pulitzer-nominated journalist who specialized in tracing dark money through judicial campaigns. "We're suing him," Jasmine said simply. Elena blinked. "For what?" Jasmine placed a folder on the table. Suppression of religious freedom, targeted public humiliation, emotional distress, and constitutional violation of First Amendment protections in a public legal forum. Maya raised her eyebrows. "You're not going to settle quietly, are you?" "No," Jasmine said. "I want the world to watch." Linda opened the folder. Her breath caught. Inside, a document labeled Harwell Black File, confidential. "What is this?" she asked. Jasmine folded her arms. 243 complaints, over a decade, filed by witnesses, attorneys, and even clerks, all alleging Harwell fined, reprimanded, or dismissed individuals in courtrooms for visible signs of religious belief. Maya looked stunned. "Why haven't we heard about this?" "Because every case was sealed, buried under judicial immunity, hidden in procedural vaults. But now, we shine light." Jasmine leaned forward. "We're filing for $800 million in damages, and we're making every American choose faith or fear." Linda nodded slowly. "Then we better get ready for war." Linda Graves hadn't touched her FBI badge in almost a decade, but as she read through the black file Jasmine had uncovered, something old in her bones stirred, a familiar fire, the one that burned when the truth was being buried and someone brave enough came to dig it up. 243 sealed complaints, she muttered. "And nobody in the press has touched this?" Jasmine leaned against the window. Judicial immunity makes it almost impossible. He's used that robe like armor, and no one's had the nerve or the reach to challenge it. Maya Chen was already typing. Not anymore. By noon, Maya's headline was drafted, "The Judge Who Fined a Cross, a Hidden Pattern of Silencing Faith in Federal Courts." It wasn't clickbait. It was a carefully constructed piece, citing sealed case numbers, redacted testimonies, and an anonymous quote from a former federal clerk who had quit under Harwell's reign. By the next morning, it had 4 million views, and counting. The public was starting to understand. This wasn't just about Jasmine. This was about a pattern of erasure, a war against quiet dignity. A mother in South Carolina sent Jasmine a letter. Her daughter had once been dismissed from juvenile court for wearing a yarmulke. "We didn't fight," the letter read. "We didn't think we could, but now we know better." The team worked late into the nights, and the deeper they dug, the darker the roots became. Elena traced campaign contributions tied to Harwell's judicial campaigns. An alarming number came from anti-faith PACs, groups advocating for the removal of all religious symbols from public schools, courthouses, and even hospitals. But that wasn't the worst part. Harwell's law clerk had anonymously mailed in a USB drive, encrypted. Elena cracked it in 2 hours. Inside, audio files. In one, Harwell could be heard laughing with another judge. "Make them hide their crosses. That's the rule. If they don't like it, they can file a complaint and I'll seal it myself." Another clip. "She thinks that cross gives her power. Let's see how powerful she feels when I fine her into silence." Elena played it twice. Maya sat stunned. He said it. He actually said it. Jasmine didn't blink. "Then we make the world hear it." The next morning, the audio files were published. The story exploded. National talk shows, church leaders, veterans groups, civil rights historians. Even skeptics who'd been unsure about Jasmine's motives started changing their tone. The Justice Department stayed silent, but insiders leaked that internal emails had begun flying. Harwell, meanwhile, went underground. He stopped appearing in court, canceled speaking engagements, refused interviews. But one clip surfaced. A grainy video from a private legal conference in Aspen, recorded on someone's phone. Harwell, drink in hand, mocking the Crossfire lady and calling her lawsuit a publicity stunt. That sealed it. Jasmine's team prepared their case. The lawsuit now included violation of religious civil liberties, emotional and reputational harm, pattern of discriminatory enforcement, abuse of judicial sealing to hide misconduct, and most critically, intentional systemic suppression of faith-based expression within the judiciary. It was legal dynamite, and Jasmine wasn't hiding. She posted a single sentence on her social media: "The robe doesn't protect you when the people rise." It hit a nerve. Within 48 hours, the hashtag #Harwell exposed had 30 million impressions. Church congregations began holding prayer rallies. Synagogues lit candles in silent solidarity. Mosques held moments of unity. And outside the federal courthouse in D.C., a line began forming, not to protest, but to attend. Because the people wanted to be in the room when the truth finally stood up and said, "Enough." The courthouse doors had barely stopped echoing when Jasmine's team received the news. Harwell was gone. Not just gone from court, gone from the country. The U.S. Marshals couldn't confirm it publicly, but a federal agent Jasmine trusted sent a message that made her blood run cold. He boarded a private jet bound for Zurich, slipped out of Dulles under diplomatic cover. No passport flag. He planned this. Jasmine stared at the screen, her jaw clenched. Maya slammed her laptop shut. Coward. Elena didn't say a word. She turned back to her computer and began typing. Her fingers moved like fire. Linda cracked her knuckles. Then we chase. The media caught on fast. Von Harwell, exposed, turned into just Harwell, on the run. Late-night hosts mocked his escape. TikTokers made parody videos of Harwell sneaking past TSA, wearing a robe and sunglasses. But Jasmine didn't laugh. Because while the world mocked him, she knew the real danger. A man like Harwell, with his wealth, legal connections, and international allies, could vanish for good. And that would mean all those voices in the black file, silenced forever. Jasmine gathered her team in a secure room near Capitol Hill. Maps, flight manifests, Swiss banking reports. Zurich was a pit stop, Elena said, pointing at a digital map. He's trying to reach Liechtenstein. No extradition. He's got accounts hidden through 6 layers of shell companies. Interpol? Maya asked. Linda shook her head. They won't move without a formal request from justice. And justice is dragging their feet. Because he wore the robe, Jasmine said bitterly. Because somewhere, some senior official still believes protecting the system matters more than exposing the rot inside it. Jake Torres, Jasmine's press strategist, burst into the room, holding up his phone. You need to see this. A video, uploaded anonymously. Harwell in what looked like a luxury apartment. Lights dim, voice calm, eyes cold. If they think I'll be tried by a political puppet like Jasmine Crockett, they've lost their minds. She's not a congresswoman. She's a crusader in pearls, and I don't bow to crusaders. Maya stepped back. Jake shook his head. The arrogance, the certainty. He's taunting us, Linda said. No, Jasmine said quietly. He's revealing what he's most afraid of. That night, Jasmine stood at her window, cross necklace in hand. She didn't wear it for the press anymore. She wore it because in moments like this, where betrayal pressed in and power felt untouchable, it reminded her who she was. Her grandmother had once said, "You can't always tear down the system, but you can make it look itself in the mirror." So Jasmine made a plan, not just legal, strategic, public, relentless. We're going global, she told the team the next morning. We build pressure in the court of public opinion so loud, so focused, even Liechtenstein hears it. Me, Jake was already typing. I'll draft the campaign. Shouted, justice has no borders. Maya arranged interviews with European outlets. Elena traced Harwell's shell companies to a lakeside villa registered under a holding group in Geneva. She locked onto an encrypted server, then cracked it. Inside, expense reports, plane logs, transfers from shadow packs into anti-faith initiatives. One particularly damning file, a $1.2 million donation labeled Faith Neutrality Campaign. Jasmine stared at the screen. He's not just hiding, she said. He's funding a war on conscience. Linda nodded. Then we expose it. Within 48 hours, Jasmine was live on international broadcast. This isn't about one judge. This is about a system that punishes conviction and protects corruption. This is about every grandmother who's ever been told to hide her cross. Every student who's been asked to erase who they are to fit into someone else's courtroom. I may be in Washington, but this case belongs to the world. The clip was translated into 18 languages. Donations flooded in, not to Jasmine, but to a newly formed legal nonprofit, the Light Defense Fund, committed to defending people penalized for religious expression. Jasmine didn't take a dime. Harwell's allies attacked back. A PR firm issued a video calling her radical, inflammatory, and politically dangerous. But something unexpected happened. The more they screamed, the more America listened, not to the noise, but to the stillness of Jasmine's strength. An elderly man in Missouri, retired Air Force, sent her a note. I never trusted politicians, but I trust people who don't blink. Keep not blinking. 3 days later, Interpol called. They had tracked Harwell's latest move. He had relocated to a high-security villa near Lake Lucerne, registered under the alias of a business partner long presumed dead. The Swiss legal liaison whispered to Jasmine's contact, "We can't act unless public sentiment supports extradition, and right now, Switzerland is afraid this is a political witch hunt." Jasmine nodded, so she doubled down. Jake posted a new video. The closing image, Harwell walking out of Dulles Airport, Jasmine staring into the camera. Her voice, "He ran from the law, but the law never runs from truth." The justice has no borders exploded. 20 million views in 2 days. People started mailing crosses to the courthouse in solidarity. A synagogue in Brooklyn painted a mural, Jasmine standing in front of a shattered gavel, cross at her throat. Even critics were forced to admit something was changing, because this wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was a movement, and at the center of it stood a woman who refused to flinch. Then came the break. Maya received a message, anonymous, a burner email account. One line, "He's planning to flee to Argentina. Within 48 hours. I'm on the inside. Move now." They didn't sleep that night. Linda coordinated with Interpol. Elena confirmed the plane reservation. Maya traced the logistics firm handling the transport. Jasmine prepared her message. At 6:03 a.m. the next morning she posted, "He escaped once. He won't again. Justice boards the plane before he does." An hour later, Interpol agents raided the villa. Harwell was in his robe, passport in hand, documents half-packed. No time to destroy the evidence. He fought. He screamed. But the cuffs clicked all the same. When Jasmine saw the photo, Harwell, hunched, cuffed, escorted past the Swiss press corps. She didn't smile. She whispered, "Now we bring him home." And home he came. The morning of the trial dawned cold, but inside the courthouse in D.C., the tension burned like fire. Lines stretched around the block, journalists, clergy, students, seniors bundled in wool coats and American flag pins. Some carried small Bibles. Others held photos of loved ones they said were wronged by a court system that punished them for what they believed. Inside, every bench was filled. There were no protests, just silence, a reverent kind of silence. At 9:03 a.m., Base Jasmine Crockett entered through the side door, calm, composed, cross at her collarbone. She didn't wave, she didn't smile. She simply walked, past cameras, past murmurs, past whispers of hope, to her seat. Across from her sat Harwell in a sharp suit, hair dyed darker than before, chin high, but his eyes, darting, scanning, wounded, betrayed the truth. He had already lost control. Judge Eleanor Blackthorne called the court to order. She was known for her stern presence. But when her gaze settled on Jasmine, it softened just a fraction. "Let it be known," she said, "this court will proceed with integrity and with full acknowledgement of the stakes." The federal prosecutor rose, Daniel White, seasoned, calm. "Your Honor, we will show that Judge Nathan Harwell not only suppressed religious expression through repeated judicial misconduct, but that he conspired to erase public records, intimidate witnesses, and weaponize legal power to silence moral conscience." Then he turned to Jasmine. "Congresswoman Crockett, please take the stand." The room held its breath. She rose, walked the length of the courtroom, and sat beneath the Great Seal of the United States. Under oath, her voice rang clear. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came here for the grandmother who stopped bringing her Bible to jury duty, For the student who had to remove her hijab during cross-examination. For the father who lost custody because he wouldn't stop quoting scripture in court. I came here for truth. She reached for the black file, the same one that had once been sealed. Now printed, paginated, indexed. She handed it to the judge. These are the names Harwell tried to erase. Judge Blackthorne nodded. The court will enter the file into evidence. Across the room, Harwell's attorney, Victor Crane, rose. Sensationalism, Your Honor. These are accusations, not proof. Jasmine looked straight at him. I have proof, and I have the voices of 243 Americans who thought no one would ever listen. The next witness was Elena. She brought charts, server maps, metadata logs. This is a trace of the erasure protocol executed from Judge Harwell's clerk terminal. 27 deletions, all within 30 minutes of receiving Congresswoman Crockett's subpoena notice. The courtroom buzzed. Crane objected. It could have been anyone with access. Elena pulled out a copy of Harwell's voice authorization protocol, a match. It was him. Then came Maya. She didn't bring slides, she brought stories. She read letters, emails, played voicemail recordings, one from a mother in Kentucky. Her son was expelled from a Christian school after Harwell's ruling disqualified the school's accreditation due to a crucifix in its entrance. I wanted my son to learn truth, the mother's voice cracked. But he learned that in America, faith can make you a target. Jasmine lowered her head. Harwell folded his arms. Outside, the courthouse was now surrounded, not by police, by prayer, Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, Jews, Sikhs, all gathered, quietly holding candles, holding each other. Inside, the prosecution rested. Judge Blackthorne turned to the defense. Crane stood. Our client denies all charges and asserts this entire trial is politically motivated. Then, in a move that stunned even the clerk, Harwell took the stand himself. He stared at Jasmine the whole time. I didn't persecute anyone. I protected the court's neutrality. I stood for the rule of law, not religion. Jasmine watched him carefully. But you sealed the files, the prosecutor pressed. To prevent media bias, Harwell replied. You deleted them, Elena said from the bench. I protected due process. You mocked victims on tape, Maya added. They were jokes. Out of context. Then Jasmine spoke. Do you remember what you called me in Aspen? Silence. She turned to the jury. He called me a crusader in pearls, said he wouldn't bow to someone like me. But here's the thing. I never asked him to bow. I only asked him to remember that the Constitution protects faith, not just in theory, but in practice. The closing arguments were electric. The prosecution showed the timeline, the deletions, the donations, the mockery, the systemic discrimination, and the cross. They held it up. This isn't evidence. This is the weapon he feared, because it meant people were still brave enough to walk into his courtrooms and not apologize for believing in something higher. Crane fired back with noise, emotion, hearsay, politics. But it didn't land, because Jasmine never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Truth was louder. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned. Guilty, on all counts. Harwell's eyes dropped. Jasmine closed hers. And outside, as the courthouse bells rang, the crowd broke into quiet applause. Not because one woman won, but because truth finally stood, and the system had no choice but to sit down. It didn't happen all at once. The shift was slow, quiet, but undeniable. 2 days after the verdict, a courthouse janitor paused to replace the framed portrait of Harwell in the judicial hallway. In its place, a simple print of the Constitution, framed in oak. No signature, no caption. Just the words, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Outside, the plaza where prayer groups had gathered was still full, not with protest signs, but with folded hands, soft voices, tears of gratitude. In a nursing home in Ohio, a retired librarian told the staff, "For the first time in years, I wore my cross outside my blouse." In Texas, A high school debate team used the Harwell trial as a case study. Their topic? When the law forgets the people it's supposed to protect. Jasmine didn't rush to speak. For 3 days, she stayed out of the spotlight. No cameras, no press, just time to breathe. Until the letters started arriving. A shoebox at first, then 5 more. From seniors in Michigan, from veterans in Mississippi, from a single mother in Idaho. From a Muslim teen in Minnesota who had once been forced to remove her hijab in juvenile court, and one from a girl named Ellie, age 9, who wrote in blue crayon, "Thank you for fighting with your heart. I'm not scared to wear my necklace anymore." Jasmine sat with that one for a long time. Then, quietly, she scheduled a public statement. She stepped onto the courthouse steps 3 days after the verdict, in the soft light of a late autumn morning. The crowd was small, mostly reporters, a few supporters. She didn't raise her voice. She just told the truth. We didn't win because of the cameras. We didn't win because of the trending hashtags. We won because faith, when lived out boldly but humbly, is more powerful than fear. And because truth, when protected by people who refuse to bend, is louder than power trying to silence it. She paused. And to the next judge, the next politician, the next law student who wonders if the law still has room for conscience, the answer is yes, but only if we make it so. The clip was shared 18 million times. Later that week, Harwell was sentenced, 7 years in federal prison, disbarred, stripped of his pension. When asked if he had any final statement, he muttered something no one could hear. Jasmine didn't attend. She was across town, meeting with law students at Howard University. One of them asked, "What now?" She smiled. "Now, we make sure it never happens again." From that moment on, the ripple became a wave. Churches launched awareness campaigns. Public defenders asked for training on faith-based bias. A bipartisan bill, the Faith Protection and Judiciary Act, was introduced, modeled after Jasmine's proposed reforms. It gained co-sponsors from both sides of the aisle. And slowly, a new message began to echo through the halls of law schools, courtrooms, and state houses. That justice is not the absence of belief. It is the defense of the right to hold it. A year later, on the anniversary of the verdict, Jasmine returned to the same courthouse. No cameras this time, just her. She knelt quietly on the cold marble floor of the hallway, right where the portrait of Harwell once hung. She whispered a prayer, not of vengeance, not of pride, but of gratitude. For the people who believed, for the truth that stood, and for the fight still ahead. Because battles end. But justice echoes. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you that faith still matters, and that justice can still win, don't let the conversation stop here. Click like to show your support. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Jasmine's shoes? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, subscribe and join our community of truth seekers who still believe in courage, conscience, and the Constitution.